Welcome to the stream, Molly and RT. How's it going?
It's going well. Thanks for having us.
All right, let's start with you, Molly. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello, everyone. My name's Molly Brown. I'm the general manager of the AWS Lake Formation team. Our team's responsible for the AWS Glue data catalog, which stores the metadata for your data lake. So we'll be talking more about data lakes, your governance layer on top of that data lake, and glue crawlers, which help you discover the schema and the structure of that data in your data lake. With me today is my coworker, Arthi Srinivathan. Why don't you introduce yourself, Arthi?
Thanks, Molly. Hi, I am Arthi Srinivasan. I'm a senior big data architect with the Lake Formation service, and I work with customers and help them architect their best for the data lake solutions for them. And I also work very closely with the service team and service engineers and help build the best product that we can.
That's great. Thank you for joining us on this Friday AWS On Air edition. Let's talk about data lakes first. So we're going to talk about data lake formation, but let's start at the baseline just so all of our viewers are aligned. What is a data lake? And that's either Molly or Arthi.
Yeah, I can take that. So a data lake is a place to store your where a company can store their data for other business processing. So it's you'll hear it commonly said that businesses or organizations want to be data-driven with how they make decisions that impact their activities. And to do that, we all are living in a world where data is generated all over us, from click streams, from your customers purchasing things, to sensors in your cars or in your networks or other pieces around you, your business systems, maybe things like tracking your customers' contact information, your employees, the HR information for your organization. All of these broad different things generate data. And organizations want to be able to bring that data together and synthesize that data and inspect it in different ways to be able to figure out key answers to key questions about maybe trends of what's happening with your customer base or trends of what's happening across your employees, things of that nature to help drive the right outcomes and decisions for your business. So traditionally, data's been this type of data might be stored in a database here or there across your organization. And the promise of a data lake is to really break down those silos of data, bring all that data together so that you can do broad analytics and inspection of what's going on across all of that data. In AWS, most our data lake customers store that data in S3. And then they use the AWS Glue data catalog to understand the structure of that data, so they can know what's stored where, and then that's where Lake Formation comes into the picture to help with that larger secure access to that data.
I kind of made a bad joke at the beginning about different bodies of water being associated to, but we actually do have a question, I think, somewhat related to that joke from the audience about why the name lake after all, right? Like, why a body of water? Jeff, did you know a banana leaf is waterproof? So that could protect you against a data lake, I suppose. But anyway,
I did not know that.
Random fact aside. Yeah, why is it named after a body of water? I mean, I think the general idea that I'm taking away, Molly, is like you said, data's being generated like crazy nowadays, like just massive amounts, and by all kinds of disparate systems that don't talk to one another. Yeah. And truly making data-driven decisions, takes some of that contextual data, like being next to, and they're not in these disparate systems. Well, so bringing it into this one area is what we're calling a lake. But can you tell us, Molly, why a lake? Do you have any idea?
So I don't actually know what the official answer history there, but I think if you think of some of the other data terms, so there's database and then data warehouses, and then I think the connotation that data lake brings is there's the old saying that water seeks its own level. It just sort of comes all together. You know, if you have water likes to sort of grow, you know, that mental image of the pond or the lake, of just a bunch of things sort of pulling together, sort of runs together into one spot. I think that's really the connotation of a data lake. The data could be coming from a broad variety of different streams, different originating points all together, and that's really the unique thing about a data lake.
Yeah, Molly, I liked how you set the stage about like previously, most databases and applications had their own database and then had their own like analytical database. And so you can derive decisions and information from that specific workload. And so now with a database, if you bring those all together, number one, it sounds like everyone knows where that data is. And then number two, onto your business decisions, maybe the analytics from this website combined with the analytics from this product database, which might have been previously separate analytic databases, but now that they're in one place, it's a lot easier to run queries and learn from both of those pieces to get data in one place.
The outcome entirely of what the query produces, right? Having those two pieces of data together.
Exactly.
Well, so sorry, Jeff, let me ask this real quick. With that in mind, Molly and Arthi, all these changes that are not necessarily new, right? Like the data trend has been, I think, over the past number of years, right, of upwards and to the right in terms of data generation. I think the job market has also changed dramatically, in response to this explosion in the amount of data. So we're seeing a lot of jobs, I think, in the past 5, 10, 15 years that primarily focus on working with data. Can you walk us through some of those personas, some of those job families that will be the ones that are interacting with something like Lake Formation?
Yes, definitely. So you start with sort of the person whose job is really curating the data for that processing is your data engineer. They're often working in the tools that allow you to extract and transform and store the data for further processing, helping make sure it's indexed and stored in the right place to help for the right performance access that you need for your data. And then the other key persona that we'll be talking about a little bit more later is your business analyst or your data analyst. So their job is more of that sort of mining through all of the piece of data to find that golden nuggets of information that help drive your business. So they're looking for that curated data to be able to help use that to inform their analysis and other decisions. And so those are the two key personas that we'll be talking about today in the new capabilities that we want to demo.
Cool. Molly, you ended your last answer with kind of about why lake, and I liked how you said a bunch of rivers, a bunch of sources of data coming together to form that lake. So I would think maybe if I have a bunch of disparate databases, it might be hard to create a data lake if I don't already have one, but it sounds like that's where AWS Data Lake Formation comes in. Can you tell us a little bit about that as a whole?
Yeah, so Lake Formation is a place that helps you centrally secure and globally share your data for analytics and machine learning purposes. We're operating, you centralize that access, you centralize the understanding about that data in the Glue data catalog. So that maintains your things like your table names and the structure of those tables. It lets you Lake Formation allows you to manage the permissions of who gets access to that data. Since in every organization, the data is very powerful, but you also need to make sure that the data is used for the right purpose to meet your organizations or local governments or your industry specific standards. and compliance standards. And that's really where Lake Formation comes into play to help with that security. We interact with the AWS analytics engines and in the Glue ETL and the Glue services to help bring data into, so those other services can get data into your data lake, and then Lake Formation helps with that management once you've sort of brought it together, that core organization and security and sharing. So.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Am.
Sorry, Jeff. I was going to let you go. Okay. So taking into account Lake Formation and how people are working with data lakes, I love too hearing more about the people. I think this extends out to, we saw, I think I'd be remiss. I think everybody's been talking about it, right? Bedrock just went GA, and a lot of this fits into the data strategy, right? Like of the evolution of how we use data. And ML is another area where we see a lot of data practitioners going to, with data scientists and things like that. So
all of those models are based on good quality of data and having it all in one place to train those models.
Right. So it's very interesting to me. I'm very excited too for this launch for Lake Formation, because the way that I understand it too, I've heard a lot from our community as well around this, is that, data engineers, data practitioners, they work differently than somebody like me. Like, I'm primarily a software developer, right? So I do a lot of DevOps. I write a lot of code. I'm like pushing mostly like web app and API type, code bases and stuff out to production. Totally different workflow than the average data practitioner, right? So the tools built for a data practitioner are going to look different than the tools built for somebody like me. So very cool to hear that, Lake Formation, I'm sure y'all take a lot of that experience into consideration. It sounds like data permissioning, which we'll be talking about here today too, is one of those important things, because you've got different groups accessing data differently.
Yeah, it's actually not uncommon that your data engineers who are building a data pipeline are operating in a pretty similar way to what if you're a software developer or a service owner, like what they'll check in the code, which might be a combination of Python or SQL or other sort of that level of code to say how the data should be processed. They'll have data pipelines that work a lot like the build and deployment pipelines that you would use for software services. So a lot of the same concepts apply, but in a slightly different domain.
Yeah, AM, it sounds like you have an opportunity if you want to take some of your software
expand my
development
horizons.
Skills. Yeah. So let's talk. We set the stage with Lake Formation, and AM asked a good question about the different personalities. And can you tell us more about this hybrid access mode and how it helps those multiple personalities that might be working within a data lake and the data inside of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when Glue Data Catalog and S3 based data lakes were initially available, what was offered for securing them was setting your permissions through IAM based policies. So very similar to how mechanisms
we're all kind of
elsewhere,
used to, yeah,
all over AWS. And that was, it gives you a base level of security. And then we a few years ago introduced the Lake Formation level of security so that you could actually express your access to these data lake tables in more of a database style semantic. So you could give access to a subset of columns in that data lake table, or filter the rows of that data lake table to control who can have access to what.
Topics that come up are like RBAC, attribute based conditions, and data tagging is really important too. So it seems like this can help with that.
Exactly. And Lake Formation express, like you can tag columns of your data or tables, your data tables, and help manage the permissions at scale in that way by giving access for given users to certain tags across your data lake. Because it's worth understanding that a data lake often can have hundreds of thousands to millions of tables that you're trying to manage. they're often very large, hundreds of terabytes to many petabytes of data. So you want to be thinking about how to manage this effectively at scale. So when we introduced Lake Formation, we forced customers to make a choice. You can govern a given table either with the older style IAM based policies or the new database style permissions. But it turns out that made it quite difficult for customers to adopt because they might the coarser grained table level controls that they could provide through IAM policies worked great for their ETL jobs to get that data into their data lake. But changing all of those systems to now maybe add a new workflow of, say, with their business analyst who wants to do sort of a data discovery to figure out how your organization's customers are interacting with some new product, for example. They wanted to have more finer grained access, and so the richer capabilities of Lake Formation's permissions were attracted to them, but it was very hard to move their existing systems, and that made it a much more difficult way to adopt the Lake Formation fine grained access control using your familiar database semantics for access control into their data lake ecosystem. And so the new feature that Arthi is going to demonstrate for you is called hybrid access control, and it allows for a given table you can set you can use both types of permissions based on which security principle is coming in to access the data. So you can keep those ETL jobs working as they were doing, and have your business analysts come in and get the finer grained access control. And so that's the setup for what Arthi's gonna now demonstrate for us.
I was gonna say, speaking of, I think Arthi is now a good time because the audience is really.
Yeah, we had Jay who actually asked for it.
They're getting
a chance. Can we have a demo?
Curious
about that. They're
demo.
excited.
They want to know. They want to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Molly, for the beautiful explanation of the hybrid access feature, and thanks, Jeff, for giving the access to me. So I am sharing my screen. Yeah. So this is my account. I have logged in as a IAM admin so that I can show you the IAM roles of the data engineer and the data analyst that I'm going to set up permissions for. So the data engineer is going to run their ETL jobs in Glue Studio, and they will be accessing the Glue catalogs, database, and tables only through IAM and S3 permissions. Okay, and I will show you what that is. Okay,
and
so I have logged
quote unquote old way, the IAM role. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So purely it is Glue catalog access through IAM policy permissions.
Perfect.
Okay. So I am. So this is just any AWS account, and I have showing you the data analyst here, and this is the data engineer role. Okay, so the data engineer role, how I have set up is they need access to the Athena, CloudWatch, and the Glue console access just to run their queries, run their ETL jobs on the Glue catalog databases and tables. Okay, I am pass role to start Glue Studio and be able to crawl stuff and writing Athena results logs. Okay, so look at this data lake bucket access for non-lake formation users and the Glue catalog access. Okay, so what these two is, this policy gives you the permissions for S3. So just for simplicity, rather than specifying different data buckets, you can also specify your different data lake buckets. I'm playing around with different buckets, so I just put a star there. But feel free to specify your S3 specific bucket that you want to grant access and the objects in it. And I have given the basic permissions, put star, get star, delete star for the objects, and list bucket and get bucket location. So this policy.
Hope Kyle's not watching.
Yeah.
With that star.
So this policy gives access to the underlying data of the databases and tables. This is for the S3. Okay, and then now comes the actual metadata, which is stored in Glue catalog for the databases and tables. Again, I am giving full access to my account's entire catalog, all the databases and tables. This is simply because I am playing around with a variety of databases and tables for different demo purposes and different test runs and trials. But you feel free to go ahead and specify just the database name here. For example, I'm going to use a hybrid demo DB. So I will specify only the hybrid demo DB here, and any specific table or all tables of that particular database. Okay, so these two policies, catalog access and the underlying data access. So these two are important for the data engineer role. This is the IAM policy permissions. Okay, and the second is the analyst role. And this analyst is what I'm going to use to grant lake formation permissions for this user. And I have given Redshift query editor because I can also use a Redshift query, Redshift Spectrum query to test some queries, Athena, the same way Glue console access to run different analytics queries through different services. Same IAM pass role, write the Athena query results bucket. But as you see here, I have not given any S3 specific or Glue catalog specific access. I have customized even the full console access. I have customized to grant only required permissions. And this basic user setup for lake formation is the important policy here. You see that there is no S3 access here, only basic Glue API actions and this lake formation basic API actions. And this lake formation get data access is the important IAM API actions for the lake formation permission. So any user or any role that you are going to set up with lake formation permissions in order to access your Glue tables needs to have this particular API, lake formation colon get data access. This is the important policy. No other S3 access, no other Glue specific table or database name access. Okay. So these two are the permissions.
So the big difference between the data engineer IAM role and the data analyst IAM role is the engineer has access to the underlying S3 buckets that's storing the data, right? And the analyst is accessing it through
lake formation.
The lake formation permissions. Then.
Yep. Okay. So lake formation, the important or the key highlights of having a lake formation permission is that you don't need to grant any S3 permissions or table level or even database specific level Glue catalog metadata permissions.
Right. Which makes sense because the engineer is going to be accessing the raw data to do transformations, to clean the data, all the things that a data engineer would be doing with the data, and then making it available for the analyst to come in and, do what they do, right? Make decisions based off of that data, collate
so you process the data, like run their business analysis on the data.
Right.
That is what they do.
So they don't need access to the raw data, so we're controlling that. Cool. Awesome.
It was nice to see the call out for the tags, so you can tag the data appropriately for the analyst just to give them the access to the data they need to.
Yeah. Yes. So now I can log off as IAM admin. I can re-log in as a lake formation administrator. But I just to keep the demo simple, I'm continuing to use my IAM admin role as the lake formation administrator too. I have nominated the IAM admin also as a lake formation admin. Can show that here. So I have created a separate lake formation admin role, but I am continuing to use my IAM admin also just to keep things simple. So now in my in the hybrid access mode, we have introduced something called a cross-account sharing version 4. This is specifically needed only when you are interacting and sharing databases and tables from one account to another account. And this version 4 takes care of the AWS Resource Access Manager, RAM policy permissions, different versions of it. That's my daughter.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hey.
She needs to play, so yeah.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. Well, what is she a data engineer? Is she a data scientist? Data
I
analyst?
want her to be a chief data officer.
Perfect. Perfect. I look forward to
by the time she comes to that place, right? So we would have abstracted and done all the heavy lifting for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would have said data architect, but you took it one step further, the chief data officer.
CDO.
I like it. Yeah.
I love it.
Okay. So this version 4 enhances the underlying RAM policy permissions to allow or enable hybrid access mode of sharing between accounts. I just wanted to show this, but for within an account sharing to different IAM roles and users, we don't need to set it as version 4. But just so you know that, I wanted to take this opportunity to show version 4 of cross-account sharing version is required for enabling the hybrid access mode in your accounts for a cross-account share. Now for the database that we are going to use for our demo, this is called the hybrid demo DB. And I have a data set in S3, and I have crawled it using a crawler. And this is it has 8 tables in it. And I'm showing you what access mode it is. This column says it's in hybrid access mode. And it also shows the underlying S3 buckets that I've used to crawl. Okay, so let's see how I am going to. So with the policies, IAM policies that I have shown you already, the data engineers permissions should work, right? Let's go and check it out. And then I'll come back and show how the data analyst permissions can be set up and how that works. So let me share this window. Here I have logged in as a data engineer, the same account. I have logged in as data engineer, same region. I am in the Glue console. I'll open my ETL jobs here. I have already created a sample job. This is the typical data engineer's ETL job. So when he's just processing the database hybrid demo DB and running a query on the table product in this database, simply print the schema of the table and then show the top 20 rows. I'm not going to count the records. The table could take longer time to finish this job. And I'm just going to simply count the columns and print the number of columns here.
I don't want to totally derail you, Arti,
Sure.
but we like to, anytime we introduce any kind of acronym or anything, ETL, extract, transform, load, right?
Yes.
Is that what that stands for?
Yes.
Okay, and this is a pretty basic thing in pretty much every data person, even like beyond data engineers. Anybody who's working with data will come across ETL jobs at some point. It's pretty foundational, would you say, to working with data?
Yes. Essentially, you're taking raw data, trying to process it, clean up any missing values. You don't want to have missing values with comma or unrequired characters that you don't want in that particular column value or row value. So this ETL job means like extract your data, transform it, do some basic cleanup on that, or process it into different format, convert it from a CSV file to Parquet. That's a transformation. So transform and then load it into another database, or load it on another. It could be a database in Glue catalog. It could be RDBMS, any other databases. So load it into your another data source. So that is what is ETL stands for. And this is a simple Glue ETL script, which is Spark, Apache Spark, Glue for Spark. And let's go ahead and run this one.
Looks like your typical data engineer hello world type of query.
You can say that, yeah. But I'm actually doing it on a table.
Yeah.
So the key highlight I want to show here is, once we set up the Lake Formation permissions in the current way before we introduce the hybrid access mode, after you set up the Lake Formation permissions, you will have a step where you revoke the IAM access, meaning there is a specific IAM allowed principals group whom you will actually revoke the access from the Lake Formation console. And then that means that ignore your IAM policy access. So anyone who's having access only through IAM policies, their access stops working. They will not be able to access the tables. And anyone who is granted access through Lake Formation permissions, only that will work. So let's see, I'm running the script here. It should take typically a minute and few
just
seconds.
To clarify, you were saying it's either one or the other. And once you moved, then IAM didn't work. If you moved to Lake Formation, then the new way would work, but the old way wouldn't work, and vice versa. Yeah. Were you able to move back and forth, or was it a one-time change?
Before this feature, you could move back and forth. It wasn't something you would do on a regular basis. You
would want to do, obviously.
You would want to do on a regular basis.
Or you wouldn't want to keep track of which, have to worry about it. So now it seems like we don't have to worry about it with hybrid.
Exactly.
Okay, so this job succeeded. So we will investigate the output logs, and in the meanwhile, I will also show you back to the lake formation console. We will start seeing how to grant permissions to the. So you see that we simply printed the schema, top 20 rows. It's a dummy table with just sample dummy data and the total number of columns. Okay, so let's remember this. The data engineer was able to run the scripts just using his IAM policies. Okay, so now let's come back to the lake formation console. And first step in order to onboard your data bucket, your data set location, is to register it here. So I have gone ahead and already just created this demo for you. So typically I'll come here and register, give my data set location here. It could be the bucket name, or it could be the specific prefix where your data set is present in S3. And you'll come and choose the role here. By default, we provide a service linked role. So what this role does is it will add the permissions to your S3 dataset location if you choose the service linked role. Otherwise, if you are choosing a custom role, you have to provide a role which has all the S3 put star, get star, and delete star list bucket location permissions on that S3 location. So provide a custom role. I also have created a custom role with access to my S3 buckets. And then you see here which permissions mode you would like to use. So the previous mode was the lake formation mode. There was only one, right? Once you register your bucket or prefix to lake formation starts managing the credentials for authorized users, for all those users whom you have granted permissions and made sure that lake formation permission is effective. Okay, now we have introduced this hybrid access mode here. So this hybrid access mode, what it does is, when you are choosing this, hey, continue the existing IAM permissions for existing users. Do not break anything. While whoever I'm going to onboard with lake formation permissions and opt in to use the lake formation permissions, only for those users, make the lake formation permissions effective immediately for that resource. So that's the key difference. So I use the hybrid access mode and I will register location. So I have already done it, and I have my sales database datasets here in my demo bucket, and I have used a custom role. It shows that I have registered it as a hybrid access mode. Okay, so once we have done that, we come to that database here, hybrid demo DB. I am going to show you the permissions, but I think I already showed you the tables. Let's view permissions on the database. Okay, so you see that the very first time when you onboard a database with lake formation, know that this database already exists in your glue catalog, right? So now you are going to onboard this into lake formation and start granting users lake formation permissions. So by default, you have not done anything. It will have this principle called IAM allowed principles with a super permission. This is a IAM group with all permissions. All permissions is also called super permissions. What this tells lake formation is that you're allowing the IAM permissions to work in the background. Your existing IAM permissions will continue working. In the lake formation mode, this is the permission that you will revoke in the last step. After setting up your lake formation permissions, you will revoke this. So your IAM permissions will be ignored. That will no one will use or access through that permissions model. Your lake formation permissions become effective. Get it? So this is in the hybrid access mode. We are going to leave it as it is. Only then my data engineer will work. Okay. So ensure that this IAM allowed principles permission is present on your database and all the tables that you want to use in hybrid access mode. So we ensure that this is here. The next step I will do is I would go to the databases and I would start granting permissions on them. Okay. You can grant permissions to IAM principals within this account, SAML users, and external accounts, external account principals also. But for hybrid access mode, for this particular demo, I'm going to show the same account or the in-account sharing scenario. So I would choose my data analyst. and I would choose the named resource method. I have selected the database already. So first time I will grant the database level permissions, describe database. And I don't want analyst to further grant this to anybody, leave this blank. And you see that this is a new thing on the console. It says make the lake formations permission effective immediately. So this checking this box means that, hey, I'm granting permissions to the data analyst, database level permissions. Make this permission effective immediately and do not break the existing IAM permissions. Got it?
Got it. Yep.
For this user analyst will always go through lake formation permission to access this hybrid demo DB. That's it. That's what this tells. Hybrid access mode. Make the permissions effective immediately. And this calls a separate newly introduced API called create lake formation opt-in. So I'm combining this principal or the IAM role and user to this database or table. So this permission will always, this access always goes through lake formation permissions. And then you say grant. The second time I will use the same grant option. I will select the tables. I can select all tables or I can select individual tables. And this time I will grant table level permissions. I will do a select describe. I don't need to be a grantable. I want only the analyst to use this. Again, make the lake formation permissions effective for this combination of database tables and the user and grant. And I have already granted this once. And let's come and see the permissions on here, data lake permissions. I'll filter by the data analyst role. Now you see that I have not given data engineer any permissions here. You notice that I am allowed principals, data analyst, glue service role for crawler, IAM admin, LF admin, but there is no data engineer. So that's the beauty. The data engineer is still be able to access through IAM policies, and data analyst is going to go through the the lake formation permissions here. So for this particular database, I have granted customer, product, and sales order, just 3 tables out of the 8 tables. And I have granted permission, select, and describe. Okay. So I already granted it. So just because I enabled that checkbox for the hybrid access mode, if I had forgotten or if I want to verify, I'll come and check. I can check it here on the left side tab. There is a hybrid access mode tab here. You can just come and add here too. You can choose the database tables and you can select the IAM roles here and say add. So this calls again the create lake formation opt-in API, and it makes sure that this resource, glue catalog resource, and this IAM user always goes through lake formation permission. I have done this already, so let's review it here. So 3 tables of the hybrid demo DB. I have granted permissions on data analyst and I have opted in. And I have also done it at the, when you say table is dash, that means it's the database level permission. So I have also opted in the database describe permission is also opted in. Now let's go. I'm going to take this browser off here. I'm going to sign back into the same account as data analyst. Let's see how the data analyst executes the permission.
All right. I don't want to rush you, Arti, but we are running short on time. So
almost there.
Perfect.
So, yeah. Here's the data analyst, same account. So let's jump into the Athena. I'm going to use Athena to query my tables.
Athena being an AWS service allows you to easily query S3 with SQL language.
Yeah. So here is I have granted describe permissions on the database. So the data analyst can see all the tables in the database, and he can also see the schema of all the tables. Okay. But see, I have granted select and permissions only on 3 tables. So let's go run the query on those 3 tables: customer, product, and so you see that the query ran through. I was able to preview the table on the hybrid demo DB customer table. Okay, let's try running a query on a table which I have not granted access. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.
Access denied.
So we are able to query as a data analyst, we can use Lake Formation to restrict permissions, grant fine-grained access, and do a lot more stuff with Lake Formation. Yeah, back to you, Molly, and yeah.
All right, we had some chat interactions there going on while you were demoing. I didn't want to break up your flow there, but I do want to revisit some of the things that a few people have said. First off, I think we had a pretty good summary from chat about what we just witnessed. So I'll read it out. If I understand this correctly, this helps in introducing Lake Formation in a measured approach to the organization without impacting how the current access is laid out. Before hybrid feature, the Lake Formation permissions would inherit or take from the IAM policies, but now that's not always the case. You can utilize hybrid to have different sets of permissions. Is that a good summary? What would you? Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a great summary.
There you go. And as I was watching, you know, I think a lot of people, especially those new to Lake Formation, obviously, you know, you don't think about this stuff up front when you're first starting to use the service. You're just, you know, excited to get in there, start pouring data in, and, you know, start working with the data, right? But trust me, when you actually have to introduce this to your, you know, where you work, a company, an organization, something like that, you are going to be happy that these permissions and this level of granularity is there, right?
Well,
what do you?
We talked about a bunch of different, keeping those different databases together in one place. Well, there's a little bit of concern there because maybe there's something in one of your rows and one of your tables that you don't want to share, but you want to share the majority of everything else. So this allows you to fine grain that detail at the table, row, or column level or whatnot.
Exactly.
It makes it easier to share in a data lake securely.
Yeah, exactly. Your data is only going to be as beneficial to you as you have confidence that you can get the right data to the right people for the right purpose in your organization.
Right. We had a question early on about best practices with working with data lakes. I think it's safe to say least privileged and correct access to data is probably at the top of best practices. So we covered that. Artie or Molly, any other best practices that are, you know, general that you could recommend to the audience that are new to working with data lakes?
Yeah, that there's a lot of best practices, but I think you know, understanding the purpose, organizing your data so that you can think about how it will be used for the right purpose. It's quite common in data lakes that you do sort of set up staged different areas, sort of thinking about sort of that initial ingestion place where maybe you don't know what's quite there in your data, you don't yet know the structure, or you haven't set up all of your governance that you need there. You have that restricted to a limited set of people, and then you work through the data, the pipeline of moving your data as you clean it, as you transform it as you need it to be, and in those transformation steps, you're also setting your security as you need it for the data. I think the idea of getting your data in the right shape as early as you can in your pipeline is really an important piece, so that the consumers further down can trust what they're seeing.
I love it. And then finally, Joseph had asked much earlier too, are we streamlining the ability to databaseify data in an S3 bucket, which I believe we saw just a little bit there at the end there, Arthi, with Athena, one of my favorite services. I love Athena. The combination between, you know, Glue, Athena, and S3 bucket is a powerful one. Do y'all want to talk a little bit about, you know, because I think this is at the heart of a data lake, right? Like of turning an S3 bucket into a queryable database. Any other thoughts that you wanted to offer, Joseph, there?
Yeah, I would say the world of databases and data warehouses and data lakes are merging together more and more every day. So where you think of a data lake sort of begins by blowing up a database, you have storage, and then there's these other abstracted engines for doing querying, separate, you know, Glue data catalog, some separate metadata store there. You see, we're bringing more of those database concepts for permissions through Lake Formation, for there's more, the table formats in your data lake are bringing in transaction semantics. If you're familiar with the the Apache Iceberg table format, or Linux Delta Lake format, or Apache Hudi format, those are bringing transaction semantics to your data lake tables, and so there's just really a rich capabilities coming in. This is a very dynamic area of the industry, so trying to those lines are definitely blurring. So you get to be able to figure out what's the right level of performance and transaction capabilities that you need for the job that you're trying to get done.
I think we got time for one more question too. And Artie, you have got some fans in chat. I just got to say, I think you're developing a fan club in chat. Jay says that was an awesome demo. Just to summarize, the data analyst role can receive this hybrid-based permission through Lake Formation in the data lake itself. And then for the role of the data engineer, it could be done in advance through IAM role definitions. Is that correct?
Yes. And I also showed you here that I ran the data engineer job again, just to show that setting up the permission did not break the data engineers.
Oh, great.
So I ran it again.
And to the question about, is this following the least privilege of security, you want to understand the data engineer. The assumption here is that their appropriate security is that they would have full access given the nature of what they're trying to do. But if that was not the case, you could definitely, and you needed finder grain access control, you could move those use cases over to using Lake Formation and getting that access. So it's really about giving customers the flexibility they need to get their jobs done.
Well, Molly, Artie, thank you both for joining us. Incredible job, both of you. The audience loved it.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
You.